What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Drew Coat Sports Talk. I am your host, Cody Johnson, not to be confused with the country singer. I am just the podcast host of this program. I appreciate everyone for dropping in. I am running a semi-solo show today. I don't have Drew today, unfortunately. He is doing some stuff for the Sanger West Hornets because he is the voice of the Hornets. So, of course, he is knee-deep in Sanger West stuff right now, but he sends his love, and he hopes to be on next week, which I hope so, too, because I always love having him on and having a good time. But I do have something I think is just as good, in my opinion. I have somebody that has been on once before, actually pretty recently. I consider him now to be not only just like a collaborator that I've had the fortune of talking with, but pretty much striking up a pretty good friendly relationship that I think is a very fun one. And we have a lot in common. Last time we talked about wrestling for those that are into WWE stuff. And he's always such a fun guy to have on. I've been on his show. I'm referring to the host of Out of Pocket and also the president of Boom Broadcasting. Mr. Michael Davis is joining me. Michael, what's up, man? How you doing?
Dude, after that intro, I'm doing fantastic. What a way. You're my official hype man now. So you've unseated Jason in that realm. Thank you for the kind words, man. It's great to be back.
I appreciate that. I did tell Jason that he's the he's the Brian Windhorse of the program because he looks just like him, sounds just like him. So if I can give you an intro like Windy can, that's a huge compliment. So I appreciate it. Michael, man, how's it going? How are you doing during this holiday season?
I'm doing good. Staying busy, of course, trying to balance work, trying to balance family, trying to balance friends, trying to balance Christmas shopping. I mean, it's got all the things, man. But dude, I'm just enjoying. I'm still trying to watch wrestling. I'm still trying to watch my sports. And my Cowboys, at least they've won 3 of the last 4. So it's not as miserable as it once was.
It is true. I think the last time we talked, I think I posed the question of, trading Micah Parsons. Is Mike McCarthy going to get fired? And not to be funny at all, and actually in all seriousness, there's a possibility that Mike McCarthy returns after it's all said and done. The Micah Parsons thing, in my opinion, is still like up for grabs. Who knows what's going to happen with that? But yeah, who would have thought after 4 weeks we would be in a position where, and I sent you this via Instagram, that the Cowboys, they have a chance to get in the playoffs, a very slim one, but we're saying there's a chance.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
Yeah, it's funny how time works like that. But Michael, I appreciate you joining me, man. And I actually watched a little bit of Out of Pocket today. I had to rewatch the first half of it because my daughter had a basketball game today, so I didn't catch the first half. So I catch the last half of it, and I had to rewatch a little bit of it today again to get all set. But always fun to see you, Jason, and Chris on. And again, all the times that you've invited me on, I really appreciate you letting me come and talk to you guys on Boom. You guys are a ton of fun, and I appreciate you for joining me tonight.
Dude, of course, anytime. You've been on Out of Pocket a couple times. We'll get you back on there pretty soon. So yeah, man, I'm ready to just sit back and chat sports or whatever else you have for me.
Oh, don't say that. We might get into a little mic behind the mic kind of action because I do catch some of those episodes. So we might have to get a little therapy couch going, sit back, tell me about how that made you feel, kind of a thing. So
okay.
Right.
You're not only my hype man, you're my therapist now.
I won't charge you as much as they will, but we'll see if we can figure out what's wrong with us at the end of it. So
all right, bet. Sounds good.
All right, man. So let's go ahead and kick off. I've sent you some notes, and we're going to pretty much go into some opening topics and then go in through a little bit of stuff. And I hope you have a top 5 Christmas list because that is on the way later on in the show. And so I can't wait to see what your top 5 is. But let's get on with it. As you know, we had some huge games this past week in week 15. I think probably the most notable one was the Bills topping the Lions. And talk about a shootout. I think it was the second largest or largest scoring game of the NFL season. And that comes on a following week that already had a game that eclipsed that to begin with. But I think we can agree that the NFC is starting to get a little clustered, especially in the top part of it. So, Michael, I'm curious, out of the Lions, the Eagles, and the Vikings, out of those 3 teams, who do you trust to get to the Super Bowl?
Well, I definitely don't trust the Minnesota Vikings.
Okay.
No offense to the Minnesota Vikings. They have the same record as the Lions, as the Eagles, but they just have a tougher route, especially if they don't secure home field advantage, which I don't believe they do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I feel like anybody as loud of a place as it is, I believe people can go into Minnesota and win. I believe people can go into Detroit and win. But when it comes to January football, Jalen Hurts, if he's healthy, Saquon Barkley running the ball like he is, you still have A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. You have guys who Philly just acquired.
Mm-hmm.
Keon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean. You have the veteran leadership of Darius Slay. You have the veteran leadership of C.J. Gardner-Johnson. And then, of course, you got Jalen Carter for Philadelphia, who has been playing hard. And he's wreaking havoc. He's honestly one of the better interior defensive linemen in the NFL, in my personal opinion. And that's coming from a Cowboys fan,
Mm-hmm.
especially not knowing Detroit, Minnesota, who would get the NFC North crown. I gotta go Philadelphia. They've been there most recently. We always know that Minnesota doesn't always perform well in the playoffs. Detroit got really close last year, losing in the NFC Championship game. But yeah, I would take the team that has had several players there before, because that veteran experience and leadership help in those situations.
Yeah, you know what? What's hard to dispute is I think prior to the game against the Bills, where the Lions lost, and not only did they lose that game, but they lost a key offensive member, David Montgomery, who's probably out unless they make a deep playoff run with an MCL sprain, and which is unfortunate because him with Jahmyr Gibbs, Sonic and Knuckles are ruthless offensively. Also, though, they've been able to keep it afloat with all the defensive injuries that they've had as well. I actually think that Minnesota is a scarier team than people realize because of the weapons that they have. You know, say what you want about Sam Darnold, but there's no doubt that he has not lost Vikings games. An argument could be made that he has been helping them get over the top and put some of these games away. Is he in a tough division with the Green Bay Packers and the Detroit Lions? Yes. However, you don't just fall asleep and wind up 12-2. You know, it takes a lot of hard work, takes a team of perseverance. And I really do think that Kevin O'Connell as a head coach, arguably in the running for coach of the year with how he's been running this team with Sam Darnold, who wasn't originally their starting quarterback at the start of the season. It's supposed to be J.J. McCarthy, the rookie. And that's what I think of that. So I do want to give a little respect to the Vikings. However, I have to side with you with the Philadelphia Eagles. And I think I do like rubbing this in a little bit more because they are within the division of the Cowboys. And they do, I think you guys have to play them one more time this year, don't you?
Yes, we do. Where was the Cody who was so nice with that introduction?
I'm still here. I am taking your word for the Eagles, and it just coincidentally that they are in the same division as the Cowboys. I will say, though, in all fairness, it is hard for me to say anything disparaging about the Cowboys with my Raiders being, 2-12 now, or 2-11, or whatever the record is. All I know is we're tanking for either Ward or Sanders at this point. So,
or Travis Hunter.
I wouldn't go with Travis Hunter. We need a quarterback. We need a quarterback in the worst way possible. Aiden O'Connell isn't the guy. We just saw Monday night. It's definitely not Desmond Ridder. But anyways, I think what I would say with the Eagles as well is not only the defense, which, by the way, hasn't given up 20 points in several weeks now, but each competition or each team that they've gone against, they have proven that they can keep up offensively regardless of the passing game situation. I know that they wanted to make a stink about it 2 weeks ago with A.J. Brown, but Jalen Hurts is still able to get into the end zone. Saquon Barkley is still able to get in the end zone. That defense protects the lead, as you mentioned, with Jalen Carter being probably one of the best defensive players in football right now. It's really hard to bet against the Eagles. And I do mention this a couple of times. There's a big advantage when you have a ton of experience. And this would essentially be the Eagles' third or fourth consecutive year getting into the postseason. Jalen Hurts is, I think, his first starting year. He got bounced by Tom Brady. The following year, they made the Super Bowl. The year prior, they got bounced in the wild card. Now, this year, potentially could make a deep playoff run. And I think with that playoff experience and how ready you can be, I think that does separate you in the NFC, because as much as I want to pick Detroit, injuries and can they now outlast and get to the Super Bowl, and what are they going to look like is a big question mark. And it seems like every week they lose a key member of that team. So that's what I'd be a little worried about.
Anzalone, Aiden Hutchinson, now David Montgomery, Len McNeil. I mean, yeah, Detroit's starting to get hit with that injury bug. I would trust Philadelphia right now. They're playing really well and they're healthy.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it's kind of weird too, because I didn't even think Nick Sirianni was going to make it through the end of the season, or I thought he'd be bounced by this season. And weird enough, he might have saved his job. And I don't necessarily think it's his coaching ability or his leadership. It just so happens that the team is winning despite that. So I don't know. That's another conversation maybe for another time. But all right. So I put this one in there, and I don't know if you got a chance to read the article. I read some of it, and pretty much what released earlier today through The Athletic was a report that the New York Jets, which, by the way, we already knew they were a poorly ran franchise, but it came out that not only did Woody Johnson get advice from his teenage sons on how to run the team, I saw in there too that he essentially didn't want to give up the mystery relevant pick because he wanted the notoriety that comes with whoever owns that pick. Also, like, just the turmoil that has happened within on how he's running the team and all this other stuff. And what I read in this article was really interesting. So, Michael, I'm just curious, man, what were your thoughts when you heard about this? And, like, are you surprised?
Not surprised. It just feels weird. You know, like, I like to play Madden. I haven't played I haven't played this year's game. I haven't got it, waiting for it to drop after the season's over on EA Play. But, I'd be like, oh, I like playing with this guy. And then I'd watch the games on TV, and I'm like, oh, I hope they get some more playing time. Why isn't Dallas using this 63 overall player that I just made into a gym or whatever? I used to play, gosh, I can't remember the actual Madden. I'm thinking Madden 13.
Okay.
And I made third string tight end James Hanna the GOAT. He got all the receiving records. And when I mean all the receiving records, I mean all. Like, he had the most touchdowns, like 9 or 10 seasons into the game. I was like, man, this is the guy. This is how we should run the team.
Why are they using him?
Why are they using him? Everybody's saying who? Well, exactly.
Yeah.
You can't trust Madden, a video game, to tell you who you need to have on your team and who you don't.
Right.
So, by all means, actually study the game if this is your job. Look at the tape. And if you knew, like, Jerry Jeudy, what he was doing in Denver with what he had to play with, and now what he's doing in Cleveland? Oh, but his Madden rating, right? No, that's ridiculous. Like, part of me is like, man, Jets, the only headlines they've had this year are Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams, and they're like, we need something better. We need a Madden headline, and I know just the guy to give it.
Sometimes I think that these NFL owners are as bad as, like, the WWE in terms of, like, how they, like, present this vibrato or do a promo where they're trying to get, heat going on to, like, whatever they're working with. And I say that in, like, Jerry Jones reminds me of somebody that does that. He'll say something that gets in the headlines to kind of get Cowboys notoriety. Half of the time, I would say before this season, when he would say something, it'd circle the media cycles, but 9 out of 10 times the Cowboys can outperform whatever was saying. I think this year with Jerry Jones, what was interesting is they were struggling, and he was saying that, like what he always does, but they're turning around, so it's not as loud as it used to be. But with Woody Johnson, though, it seems like not only is it getting louder, it's getting worse, because some of this article that you're reading, he's making decisions that not only looking at someone's Madden rating that his teenage son told him about, but could you imagine if you're a scout with all these years of NFL experience on looking at and evaluating players, you're Joe Douglas, the former GM, saying, hey, we should get a weapon like that for Aaron Rodgers. and you say, Madden rating's too low. I don't know how I feel about that. Probably not. I'm sorry, what? How many athletes complain that their Madden rating doesn't match what they believe their abilities are? Or maybe it's rated too high or too low. The fact that Madden is so pivotal in the NFL on an ownership level is almost kind of laughable. It is the most comical thing I've heard all year. And I thought I've heard some doozies. Like Aaron Rodgers now bickering with the media about what former players say on ESPN while saying it on ESPN to a former player. The irony of that is just too funny as well. But I think the point being of like, at least with the Cowboys, there's an intention to be better. With the Raiders, there's a lot of like turmoil with whether AP is going to stay or Telesco or Mark Davis and all this stuff. But they're actively trying to be better. I don't know what the Jets are trying to do. I don't know if they have a plan on what they're going to do, if it has anything to do with this current century. I just know that they might as well be like sent down to the USFL team to figure it out. And then we'll just call one of those teams up to take their place. Because right now, like the way it's running over there, I don't know if the NFL is going to step in or not, because that is something interesting. I haven't seen something that bad since when the Washington Commanders had Dan Snyder as the owner. And there's that whole report of the sexual harassment ring that he had going on in his organization.
Dude, this is nuts. Like, it just doesn't make sense. Their plan was probably Aaron Rodgers, and that went out the window 3 plays into last season.
Yeah.
So I feel like they're just riding it out. Once Rodgers decides to leave, whatever happens there, then they're like, okay, it's time to build from scratch. Let's trade Devontae Adams, and we might get a 5th-round pick for him now. And it's going to be gross. And
I'm going to tell you this as a Raiders fan, because you know that whole drama with Devontae Adams wanting out of the Raiders, which, by the way, as a fan, seemed like a blindside because all offseason he wanted to stay. So now seeing this article almost kind of vindicates for me that, you know, I hope this shows that the grass isn't always greener on the other side, because you went to your best friend. And not only that, but within a week of you being there, the coach is gone, the GM's gone, the owner is kind of running that place like a maniac asylum. And I hope it's worth it in a sense. You still lost, 9 straight posts that. I hope that it was worth it at the end of it, because he doesn't look much more happier than when he was with the Raiders. And I don't know if it's going to get any better. And he might even be on the team at the beginning of next season, just because of the way his contract works and the way the Jets are going. I hope it was worth it for him, but that's besides the point. All right, man. So last opening topic before we get into some of the good stuff here. I think you have heard about this. The NBA is starting to do another format of the All-Star game, which I don't know about you, but literally over the last 10 years, it has not looked great. The only year that I can recall that looked decent in the most recent history was 2020. I believe that was the year, unfortunately, Kobe had passed. They had the bubble and they did the All-Star game before the pandemic. And so that was probably the last good All-Star game I remember seeing. But now with the updated format, it's some sort of like red round robin 4-team thing. I can't even explain it because it's kind of confusing and it doesn't make any sense from the original format. But I'm curious, whose fault is it that the NBA and the All-Star game is just not competitive anymore?
That's tough to say, because the NBA is not the only league that struggles with their All-Star. I mean, NFL struggled with their Pro Bowl game for quite some time. It feels like, why would they care?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why would NBA stars care about winning this All-Star game? Why do NFL players care about playing this Pro Bowl game? It just, I don't know what you can do to fix it. I feel like the whole thing is, hey, if you want to see all your favorite stars, they're going to play an exhibition game and we can try to sell more money. When it comes to the TV, it doesn't matter to the TV audience. They're like, we can watch them literally any other time. They're not going to compete. I feel like it's more of an experience for the fan who gets to spend their money and go to those events and hopefully meet all the stars that you would want to see. I don't know if there's much fixing it. Like, it's there were the captains, and then there were, hey, let's play to a certain number, and then we'll reset the game, and it'll go to another number.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's like we have 3 all-star teams of 8 players, and then a 4th Rising Stars team. Now, one thing I do want to say about this is you will not have like an all-star team of like 12 players,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is genius. Because how terrible is it to have an all-star team and the game doesn't even matter, and you have 2 guys who probably made the first all-star appearance and they get 3 minutes on the court.
Mm-hmm.
That's wrong. That to me is wrong. Like with an 8-man rotation, which is what a lot of NBA teams use in general,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like if you make the all-star game, you'll have a role on that team. You're not going to play everybody like all 40 some minutes of the game. Like a guy like Tyler Hero, who's trying to get into the All-Star game right now for the first time in his career. Like him playing 3 minutes, nah. Like let him play significant amount of time, especially for those fans who, oh my gosh, I love Tyler Hero, and they go to the All-Star game and he doesn't enter the game. It's stupid.
Well, I think another frustrating thing too, and I was hearing this in some interviews with like Kevin Durant and LeBron James, which in my opinion, those are probably the 2 biggest culprits of why we have the most uncompetitive games of basketball on an all-star level, is because, originally it was, well, we played too many games. There's not a full week off the all-star break. And so then they gave that to the players. Well, they still didn't play harder. Oh, there's not as much incentive to do XYZ. Okay, well, let's do it like the playground where you get to pick your own team, which, the draft for that was kind of cool. It wasn't terrible. And then you get to the point where today some of them are like, oh yeah, it's not as competitive. It's not as fun anymore. And I hear that and I go, do you guys not realize that you're the ones playing in the game? Like the competitiveness comes from you guys. And I get it. Like, I'm not trying to get injured. And if that's the case, don't train during the summer, because you have the same risk of getting injured during the summer as you would in an all-star game. In fact, in any particular game, preseason, regular season, or whatever. So I kind of take exception when players are like, oh yeah, I don't know what's wrong with the all-star game. They need to figure out how to fix it because it's not great. You're playing in it. Wouldn't you be the first one that could change it if you had the ability? So I find that particular and very interesting. Another thing, though, I think the NBA is heading to a place where we're probably going to have to start cutting games throughout the season. I think we're at an age now where 82 games isn't attractive anymore. And part of it could be that the argument makes on these players. For example, you brought up Tyler Hero, and he's not going to play 3 minutes. All-Star game is a fan-voted affair. So they're going to vote the favorite player. Tyler Hero is a good basketball player. That doesn't mean he's going to get voted as a player that should start or be in the All-Star game. And I think a lot of the time, the reason why some of these players don't play as hard is because too many games. I'll point to Embiid and the Sixers, where he's not playing back-to-backs, all this, all that, because of, how his body's been reacting to these games and his injuries and all that stuff. And then you have rest games and all this other stuff. So I think we're getting into a point where we're going to shave the season down, and maybe that would spark more competitive basketball, because now there's less games. There should be less wear and tear on your body figuratively, and then we can figure it out. The only other thing I can think of, put them back in a bubble with no audience and have them play. That'd be the only other thing I can think of to get them to play competitive basketball, because no matter what the NBA comes to the table with, it's never good enough, and it never gets them to compete any harder than a glorified layup line, in my opinion.
Glorified layup line. That is a line in of itself. Glorious line right there. I don't know. I don't think the bubble, like putting them back in the bubble, would work. I feel like that'd be like, well, man, we just lost all that revenue from, fans who could come and watch us.
Oh yeah, $1 billion industry worried about another $1 billion in revenue. Boo-hoo.
Boo. Hey, they will not lose their money, which is why I'm like, I'd push back on shortening the season, even though I agree. I think the absolute least you could shorten it to is 72. Like, take out 10 games, see which is like the least marketable, and hey, go from there. But yeah, it looks to me like we're we're going to keep an 82 game season and just have stars keep sitting out.
Yeah. I think the NBA All-Star game had a problem with this prior as well, but I think one of the things that was intriguing, at least I remember, was when they said whoever the winning conference was got home field advantage regardless of record. And sometimes I'm not a fan of that, but at the same time, like if there's some stakes involved for whatever, maybe it's within your interest to compete a little bit, because you never know if you're an 8th seed and you start game 1 in your home floor because your conference won the All-Star game, as trivial as some people might say it is, but hey, there's actually something on the line, because the NBA is doing, at least Adam Silver, I'll say, is trying to roll out like the NBA Cup, all these other like accolades to get everyone excited, even putting like a minimum games played on season awards, and it's like it's not really working to the intention. So I also think that the players need to be the ones to actually do what is being asked of them, because some of them just think that I play basketball, I don't need to answer to you. And I don't think they realize TV revenue, ticket revenue, all this other stuff comes from the fans because of those athletes. So it's kind of like all this money wouldn't be offered to you if these games aren't played in front of these fans that paid a lot of money to watch you, just to see you half-ass it, so to speak,
Yeah. And that's the sense of entitlement we have right now. And it's unfortunate because it's like, you're running a business and the boss can try implementing something, but the employees are like, we're not doing that. It's just not going to get done, or it's not going to get done to its full effect.
Yeah.
That could be something to worry about.
Yeah, no, I agree. Probably a deeper conversation that we'll never get to the bottom of why and how and whatever, but just very interesting that this seems to be at least the most targeted the NBA has seen in terms of like their audience is going down. It's not as popular as the NFL is, obviously, because the NFL is just such a beast of a marketing machine. But I don't know. Smarter people will have to figure it out before I will, and that's all I know. It's just tough to watch because I love the NBA, and I hate to see it falter like this just because players just don't want to play hard for 82 games or whatever the case is. So. So anyways, okay. So moving on, Michael. So we're going to do buying and selling. So I'm going to give you a sentence. You're going to buy or sell it for me. I don't know if you remember the old PTI ESPN days, but they used to have this segment all the time.
Yeah, I do.
So, okay, great. If any sports podcaster doesn't know PTI or Around the Horn, shame on you.
Do something else.
Yes. Go back and watch some previous episodes. I'm sure they're on YouTube. A lot of fun. But anyways, I'm going to start with the first one, and I think you talked about it on your show Out of Pocket today, but I want to hear firsthand out of you since you host that show, and sometimes people don't give you the mic all the time like I'm going to right now. So buying or selling, Michael Penix will lead the Falcons to the playoffs.
Dude, I really want to sell that because the head coach is still Raheem Morris. Now, They do have the Giants. That could be a win. The Commanders, that's probably a loss. Panthers, that's probably a win. And then you look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and what they have. They have the Cowboys, a win. Panthers, a win. Saints, a win. That's 3-0 right there. They already have a 1-game lead over the Atlanta Falcons. And they have beaten the Falcons the Buccaneers have lost both of these games to Atlanta. So if they tie, then Tampa Bay is going to lose that tiebreaker. So there's more incentive for them to show up to these games against the Cowboys, the Panthers, and Saints and not drop one. And I think that will help them. They've already won 4 straight. They can win 3 more.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I'm selling this for all it's worth, and it's probably not worth much, but this is not a knock to Michael Penix Jr. To be truthful, I can't evaluate his game yet because he hasn't really taken NFL snaps, even in the preseason, very limited. I think, though, the Atlanta Falcons are not helping this situation because as much as I think Michael Penix deserves an opportunity, I think maybe this is like 3 weeks too late, 4 weeks too late, because I would have suspected a team do this right as they were nosediving, not when they have gone 4 straight games, 8 straight quarters with Kirk Cousins not throwing a touchdown pass and also turning the ball over a bunch of times. I feel like if you would have decided to make this decision, it would have been sooner than week 16. And I almost don't feel like it's fair to him because he's not going to have a whole lot of room for error. And that's what's going to happen as a rookie quarterback. We don't know how he's going to react to these defenses, regardless of how soft they are, how bad the team is. It's NFL defenses. NFL teams for a reason. This isn't college. And so I feel like the Falcons, they're not going to hinder his growth, I don't think, but it's going to be really hard to evaluate what Michael Penix is with 3 games, making a playoff push. I don't know how to really put an evaluation on if he's good or bad or whatever the case is. It's just kind of another head scratching thing that the Falcons are doing. It feels like that they are trying to be too cute, if that makes any sense. Like they're overdoing it. They should just choose a lane and not try to outsmart themselves is what it feels like.
That's exactly what it feels like. And it could cost them a playoff spot.
Yeah, and to be truthful, I see the Buccaneers winning this division. They don't have the tiebreaker, I think, as you mentioned, Falcons do, but Buccaneers right now have all the momentum. They have some tough teams, but the Falcons just are going to start a rookie quarterback. So I feel like they're trying to put themselves behind the situation and they don't need to be. But all right, so next one, buying or selling, Aaron Rodgers will not be in the NFL next season.
Be in the NFL?
Well, let me just finish that out. I don't think I teed it up right for you. Will not be on an NFL team next year. So he'll be a free agent. He won't retire, but he won't be on a team to start the season.
I'm going to sell it.
Okay.
And it's not because of the quality of play. I'm saying Aaron Rodgers doesn't want to retire as a Jet. But at the same time, there is going to be a team that is like, hey, there's Aaron Rodgers as a free agent. We're going to go get him. There are those teams in the NFL who would say, hey, we need a quarterback. We need to sell tickets. Are you telling me the Patriots wouldn't try to do that? Are you telling me Cleveland wouldn't have a chance to get him? Tennessee, you think Tennessee would go after Aaron Rodgers? Let's go ahead and do it. The New York Giants.
Yeah, staying in New York, but just going next door. Well, actually in the same building.
Mm-hmm. Staying in New York, going to the Giants. It just makes all the sense in the world that Aaron Rodgers wouldn't let the Jets be his final destination.
Yeah. So in the article that I was reading today, there was a couple of times where Aaron Rodgers was asked about how a franchise and coaches and all that. And he basically alluded to, when the owner can back a coach on the field, off the field, in the media, not in the media, it makes a world of difference to know that that coach is being, has the backing of ownership. And when Aaron Rodgers was kind of pressed on that, the Jets are doing, he kind of, I don't want to say gaslight, but he wasn't really answering the question. He was kind of dancing around it and then essentially implied that, no, that's not what happens here. Because clearly Woody Johnson does not back his management staff. He doesn't back his coach, which is why neither of them are on the team now. And it's just kind of apparent that, Aaron Rodgers is on the Jets because he has to be on the Jets. I will say it's what he asked for. But I don't see him being on the Jets. But I will say, I think I'm buying this. I'm not sure what team is going to give up a starting quarterback position to get Aaron Rodgers. The last 4 games, sure, he's played fine. Against some poor teams, I'll say. And again, out of the last 4 games where he's played fairly well, he's lost 3 out of those 4 games. There's only 1 game that they've won out of that. So it's not like they're this hot team that, they're just short. No, they're a 4-10 team. They play like a 4-10 team. Part of that was because of their quarterback, Aaron Rodgers. And part of the thing I think is going to be troubling is, how is Aaron Rodgers going to vibe with the new team? How is he going to gel with their ownership, with their coaching? Because not a lot of coaches like to be pushed over like what the Jets were kind of allowing Aaron Rodgers to do. Well-ran organizations that are almost on the cusp of Super Bowl prosperity, let's say, they have this united front that players aren't going to get through. And I don't see how Aaron Rodgers is going to get in there and not have a voice to move his power around like what he's doing with the Jets now. it's just hard for me to see what team is willing to bite the bullet and invite the circus in and allow him to do whatever he's doing on a team in a starting position on a competitive team. Like Cleveland sounds like the logical one if they don't draft a quarterback. New England, they have Drake May, who's pretty good. I don't see how that's happening. Maybe the Giants, if they draft a quarterback and want him to learn under Aaron Rodgers, but I don't know if the market for Aaron Rodgers is that large any longer. Not after this season, in my opinion.
You just need sell tickets, honestly, if you're at that point. Giants need tickets.
They need more than just tickets. They need a whole exorcism in that franchise. We think that the Jets are, well, actually, let's give a little grace to the Giants. They've had a rough season because of a roster, and we can say poor mismanagement of their team and how they treated their quarterback. And also, too, though, they're not nearly as dysfunctional as the Jets. So give a little grace on that. But, you know, still, like, not a great situation to go into following. So, all right, next one. Buying or selling, the Bills are the most trusted team to get to the Super Bowl.
False. I'm selling that. Dude, what? The Bills? Okay.
You don't trust the Bills?
They are the only team who has beaten the Detroit Lions and the Kansas City Chiefs. I'll give you that.
Mm-hmm.
But they aren't the back-to-back Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. Like, that is the most trusted team. Until a team can beat the Chiefs in the playoffs, I'll believe they're going back to the Super Bowl. Like, this is the Tom Brady Patriot effect. To another degree. Like, this is unreal what they've done. And yeah, Josh Allen's got Patrick's number in the regular season. Tell me when he's had it in the postseason. He hasn't.
100%. So I love the fire because I agree. I'm selling this. And the reason why is because the Bills are the most fun offensive team in the regular season. Get them in the postseason with the Chiefs, not so much success. And I was doing a little bit of research. I think this maybe last week. Since 2021, when the Bills and the Chiefs have met in the regular season, the Bills have won every time. But when they meet in the postseason, the Chiefs have won every time, or the Bills don't make it to the next round to face the Chiefs. For example, when they win against the Bengals and the Bengals beat them. So I agree. Until I see them win in the postseason to be in the Super Bowl, that's the only time I can trust them, because I agree. They have to get past the Chiefs. And one of the things I do want to point out and give you a ton of credit for on Out of Pocket, when I see you do your NFL team rankings, and you put the Chiefs number one, even though a lot of other sports networks like FS1, ESPN, I'll just name some of those, are not putting them number one. I've seen, I think First Take put them number 5 at one point, but they have the best record in the NFL. And yes, they don't win pretty, but they win games. They have Andy Reid, they have Patrick Mahomes. It's not going to be pretty. And I think I pointed this out on your show. The Chiefs are always going to get another team's best because they're the defending champions. So they're never going to have a cakewalk. And yet there's one game that they lost. Is it against the Bills? Yes. But they have won every other game. They're the most experienced team in the NFL until, like, just like what you said, until otherwise, it's the Chiefs. Period.
And as soon as they, like every other team they've lost, and I've dropped them. Mm-hmm. I could not drop the Chiefs out of number one. Like, right. And I just can't, because it's like, yeah, you're not going to be perfect. You're not going to be undefeated. Again, with that Buffalo stat of they've won every regular season game since 21. And it's just like, yeah, guys, Kansas City can win those close, ugly games. You know why? Because they've been in every single situation. Yeah. You know what happened? They're going to come through. Like, it's easy.
This is like back in the day when it was the Patriots and the Colts, Tom Brady and Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning in the regular season would get the Patriots and the Colts and Tom Brady and the Patriots. He would win in that one. But when the Patriots got a hold of Peyton Manning in the postseason, other than one time, which is when the Colts won the Super Bowl, they beat Peyton Manning every time. In fact, they would almost beat them in the wild card or championship game, to where they would then be representing the AFC. Because just because you beat someone in the regular season doesn't mean you have their number in the postseason. That's when it matters the most. Do you have to take care of business in the regular season? Yes. but it's different when you got to face them in the postseason and you get them when they're the most prepared, the most fired up. That's probably it matters the most, and that's what's going to separate these two. And I agree, the Chiefs would be the most trustworthy one, not the Bills.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So next one, buying or selling. This season for the Lions is their only opportunity to get to the Super Bowl.
I'll sell that. That. You still have Jared Goff. You have St. Brown. You have Laporta. Dan Campbell. People love playing for him. You still have Aiden Hutchinson. They have a good squad. They're pretty young. I don't see this being their final window. I think it's open. I think last year it was opening. And then there's usually a 3 to 4 window it stays open. So we're just in year 2 of that, and they'll have 2 more years to do it.
Okay. I'm gonna be buying this. I think that this is probably the Lions' best shot to get to the Super Bowl, because I don't know if they'll be able to put it all together, because the run that they're on this season to get the momentum is historical for their franchise. I don't know if they can duplicate it next year. I think contracts will be up for renewal or extensions, or they'll have to let some of the team go. Also, too, I'm sure Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson, those coordinators, are they going to be on the team next year? That's a huge question, because this could be a situation like the Philadelphia Eagles, where they get all the way to the Super Bowl, probably their last opportunity. All their coordinators go take all these new jobs, and they just haven't been the same. This is probably the closest season the Eagles have gotten to be looking good. But right now with the Lions, again, this team has gone only as far as the NFC Championship game when they lost, and now they're going to try to get past that. But they were healthy when they got to that point, and now they're not so much. And then next year, if they don't get there, can they get it all together again? Because it's hard to maintain this type of success, this longevity, that level of length of play, like that teams like San Francisco was doing. The Eagles are kind of on it now. The Chiefs, it's hard to do that. And for a team to just barely be experiencing that success, can they continue it? I don't know. So I'm going to be buying. I don't know if this might be their best opportunity to get to the Super Bowl.
It's okay when they're in the Super Bowl. Well, hopefully Dallas is in the Super Bowl. Never mind. I'm not going to finish that statement. I'm just saying, don't be surprised if Detroit's in the Super Bowl in 2 years.
I mean, trust me, as I think if there was a secondary team that I would root for, and we talked about this, it'd probably be Detroit, because they're just the underdog. They've been a franchise of, being on the laughing stock. Every time they're on the Thanksgiving game, it's to see them get absolutely obliterated by whatever team they play. That's really tradition right there. That's the only tradition that they're known for. But now to see it on the other side, where they're actually winning games in convincing fashion and they're actually a powerhouse, I'm not sure if they can sustain it. I'd love to see it, but I don't know as well, because I haven't lived a lifetime where I saw them succeeding in the NFL for a long period of time. I've seen one season of them doing it. I don't know if they can do it again. So, all right. So this last one, we kind of already touched about it regarding the Chiefs, but obviously, as we know, Patrick Mahomes has that high ankle sprain, ton of injuries. Buying or selling, Mahomes' ankle injury and their lucky wins will prevent them from three-peating.
That's tough. There's a lot of factors that could prevent a three-peat. If it's Mahomes hurt, that could prevent it. But we've also seen Mahomes on one leg do amazing things. So
yeah,
I'll sell it, but that is probably the only thing that could prevent them from a three-peat.
Yeah, this is tough, because we just talked about, the Chiefs are the team we would trust the most out of the two teams. I mean, I want to feel weary about Mahomes' ankle injury, because it's a significant one. It's a high ankle sprain. It's not a nothing of an injury.
And he's playing this weekend. He's playing Saturday against Houston.
Yeah,
Why?
but I agree. I think he should sit the rest of the regular season, because I don't know if it's because they want to lock up first round bye. I have no idea if that's the case of it, but in my opinion, they can sit him the rest of the season. And I don't think Carson Wentz is that bad of a drop off to manage the game. because I think they can win the game with how Andy Reid will have a game plan and coach it up. I think he can get a win with Carson Wentz. So I don't want it to seem like they have no hope if Carson Wentz starts. I think he'd do pretty well. But, if this is what they want to do, it might make it worse. But, what's hard is I have to sell this because until, like what we talked about, until we see otherwise, the Chiefs will outlast you. And that's what's the most important. Like the late field goals that doink in to win. Hey, sometimes that's the way it falls. Block punts, that's not just luck. That's a lot of coaching that goes involved, a lot of scouting, this, that, and the other. So I guess I would have to sell it too.
Mm-hmm.
So
good job.
All right, Michael. So we're going to go through some of these NFL picks. I don't have any crazy pick'em games like what you would so fun creatively do for us, where you had to pick the underdog for double the points and all that. I'm pretty vanilla. So I'm going to give you the teams. I'll give you the spread. Tell me over, under, and who you like. And then that's pretty much how we'll do it. You game?
Okay.
All right. So week 16, ironically enough, the Texans and the Chiefs. This is in Kansas City. Kansas City is favored by 3.5 points. Who you got?
So am I taking the spread or am I picking outright who wins?
So you can do either one. If you think it's the Chiefs and you're going to go over, you can. If you're going to pick the Chiefs and just say the Texans can cover, you can. If you think the Texans or whatever team outright wins, you can pick that as well, whichever one you're leaning towards.
Yeah. I think Kansas City wins this game. I just don't see them winning by 4 points or more. I think it's going to be a 2 to 3 point victory because guess what? They can win those close games and that's okay.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so you've got the Chiefs, but the Texans to cover. You know what? I want to find a way to pick against the Chiefs because ironically enough, to start the season, I picked the Texans to represent one of the top AFC teams, and they're not really looking like that. I don't know if they're going to be able to dethrone the Chiefs, even though this is probably a playoff matchup, a preview of one, but I would agree. I'm going to have to go with the Chiefs, but I will say I'm going to have the Chiefs to go over. So I think like maybe a touchdown or, more than 4 points. I think I'm confident enough to say that I think the Chiefs can go over on the spread. So,
okay.
All right. Another big one. And actually on your show, I chose the Steelers against the Eagles and I was wrong. So in this one, it's the Steelers going to Baltimore and Baltimore is favored by 6.5 points. So who you got?
Dude, can I tell you how tough that is right there?
Such a big spread for a divisional game,
I mean, and here, Mike Tomlin, I believe, is coach of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Derrick Henry at one point I liked as MVP. Lamar Jackson, he's probably playing his best season. He won MVP last year. 3,500 yards, 4 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Pittsburgh did win the game earlier this year, 18-16 in Pittsburgh. I do believe they split this series. I do believe Baltimore wins. It's not going to be by 6.5. I definitely see Pittsburgh covering, but I'm going to have the Ravens winning this game. And there's not going to be a lot of offense. 45.5 points. Yeah, take the under on that one.
Yeah. Here's what's tough. Steelers might be third game in a row without George Pickens, who is kind of what opens up that offense. I don't know why, but Mike Williams just doesn't seem like he's that involved with it. And you have Calvin Austin III, who's undersized. He's explosive, but he's not a receiver that you can rely on every single down, and he's not moving the chains. So I think that's tough. And the Steelers defense went through some injury woes against the Eagles, so they're not even coming in fully healthy. And I will say, too, I think the Ravens, if they can get this win, they'll tie the Steelers for the divisional lead, and they have an opportunity to then take the division, which I think is what they want to do. So I'm going to go with the Ravens. I will take the over, though, on the points. And it's not because I don't think the Steelers will put up a fight. I just think how injury-riddled they are. It's going to be really hard to stop Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, Zay Flowers. Mark Andrews is now being, way more focal pointed in that offense than it was earlier this season. And Lamar Jackson it sounds like he's trying to do a late surge to maybe be in contention for the MVP running, because his stats are unreal. And they're only, I think, a game or two behind the Bills right now. So, like, we're all talking about Josh Allen being MVP, but Lamar Jackson's trying to say, hey, don't forget about me. So, all right, next one. This one is kind of got some NFC implications, but it's also got Aaron Rodgers on it. So I love to talk mess about him anytime I can. We got the Rams going to New York. Rams are favored by 3. Who you got?
Rams only being favored by 3 against the Jets is pretty tough.
Mm-hmm.
And the points are 46.5. I think it's going to be a high scoring game, especially with the Rams getting stuff going. I'm going to take the Rams, and it's probably going to be by about 12 points right here.
Oh, wow. You're going way over.
Yeah, way over.
I hate to keep agreeing on your picks, but I would agree. I think the Rams with their weapons, just too tough to stop. Jets are too depleted. And again, let's not get bogged down in their one victory that they had. It's not really anything to focus on. So I'm going to go with the Rams as well. I think I'll take the over as well. I don't know about 12 points, but more than 3 for sure. All right. Now we've got an NFC East rivalry game. We have the Eagles going to Washington to play the Commanders. Eagles are favored at 3.5. Who you got?
Man, this is a huge game. The Eagles have been on a win streak of 10 games now, and beat the Commanders in one of those games. A lot of people are buying Philadelphia stock. People are also selling Washington stock. But with how good this Washington team has been this year, they have beaten the Titans, then they've beaten the Saints, one in a blowout, one in a close game, kind of regained some confidence a little bit. I see a scenario where Washington could win this game and could prevent Philadelphia from getting a home field advantage. Wow. I think they split the season series. I'm going to take Washington outright to win this game. Wow.
That's a bold pick. I'm sure you would just bet that they would both tie and just get over with it. But man, I think this is where we're going to differ. I'm going with the Eagles. I think they're hot. I get it that Washington wants to split the series or really pushing to make sure that they clinch that wild card spot, because I think they're only a game above whoever the second place team is in the NFC to even secure it. But all the points that you mentioned, I like the Eagles. I like that their offense started passing the ball a little bit more. You got Saquon Barkley. If you get all those pieces involved in that defense, it's going to be really hard to stop the Eagles. And I don't know if the Commanders have enough on their defense to stop everybody, even though I think Marcus Lattimore is supposed to start in this game, or maybe he played last game. But I don't know if it's enough, just because the Eagles have so many weapons. And again, they're really making a strong push right now. So I'm going to have to go with the Eagles, and I would probably take the Commanders to cover, but the Eagles to win. So,
okay.
Yeah.
I think it'll be wrong on that one. It's fine.
We'll see. We'll see come Monday night, right? All right. So a couple more. We have the Vikings going to Seattle, and Seattle is obviously coming off of a loss against, I want to say it was the Rams, if I'm not mistaken, Thursday Night Football, that stinker. So Minnesota is favored by 3 in this game. Who do you got?
So we got the Minnesota Vikings. Minnesota Vikings favored by 3 in Seattle. Dude, Seattle winning in Seattle has become easy.
Yeah.
They are 3-5 at home this year. That's amazing. That is crazy. Minnesota's trying to keep pace with Detroit. And so I got Minnesota, and I got them by 6 points. Seattle's going to try. They're going to get the ground game going a little bit, take some pressure off Geno. But for a guy who's thrown, 14 touchdowns and 13 interceptions, I don't see much happening for the Seahawks.
Yeah, I haven't seen much happening for the Seahawks, and I have some of their players on my fantasy team. So I need Geno Smith to have a really good game, because I'm in the finals of one matchup, ironically enough, against my cousin. So shout out Nick. But Minnesota, in my opinion, is going to go into Seattle and they're going to absolutely obliterate Seattle. I more than 3 for sure, maybe even more than 6, because as I mentioned, I think that in the NFC, Vikings are a team that people should not sleep on and actually be really worried about making a deep run. But Seattle, the wheels are falling off. I think, the Rams have caught them. I think the Rams are going to secure the NFC West. I don't see how Seattle can really come out of this. If they can beat the Vikings, that's a huge boost for them, but I just don't see how they get that done. So I don't trust the Seahawks. So I got the Vikings on this one. All right, last one. This is for your boys. We got Tampa coming into Jerry's world, and Tampa's favored by 4. So Michael, who you got?
So I don't want to spoil Dad and the Boys for whoever hasn't consumed that on Boom Broadcasting or Fans First Sports Network. But dude, this is I got Tampa. It's going to be tough. I don't think it's going to be by 4 points. So I could even see Dallas just losing by like a couple points. It's going to be close, especially if Dallas can control the ground game. But they're 1-6 at home. They've been playing pretty well. But Tampa knows, especially with Atlanta's decision to start Penix over Cousins, they're like, this division's in our bag. But this is the toughest game Tampa will play this year. Yeah. Dallas is at a point they're starting to shut people down. Trayvon Diggs out for the year. DeMarcus Lawrence out for the year. So on and so forth. DeMarvion Overshown, he's out. Zach Martin, he's at like – it just feels like everybody's like, okay, this is not our season. Even though they could surprisingly finish with a 9-8 record. But yeah, I don't see Dallas winning, but I'll give them the points. They'll only lose by 2. Okay.
Respectable. So they'll cover. Man, I really want to pick the boys to make you feel good, but I'm looking at their previous game. Obviously they ran all over the Panthers. The Bengals, they did lose at home to the Bengals, which I think offensively they're very similar to the Buccaneers. I think maybe the Bengals offense slightly better just because they have Jamar Chase and T. Higgins.
That Bengals game, though, if ROREA does not touch that punt, then we get the ball in field goal range. Brand Aubrey, he's like automatic, and it's a win. It was like really? That's how you lose, dude. Of all the games, and you know how disappointed and upset I've been all year, of all the games, that's the one where I was like, really?
Yeah, that's an extra possession. That was what gave the Bengals the go-ahead touchdown.
So frustrating. Didn't mean I haven't gotten over that loss yet.
I'm going to go with the Buccaneers. I think I agree the Cowboys will cover. I don't think they're going to lose by, more than a field goal, if that. But I think one of the things that's interesting is how aggressive are the Buccaneers going to be against Dallas? Because, kind of a homecoming game for Mike Evans. And I know that everyone in the Buccaneers building knows that Mike Evans needs to get over 1,000 yards to be 11 straight, and they're going to maybe push for that. So I'm not saying that the Cowboys won't put up a fight, because ironically enough, even with all the injuries, that defense has finally come alive, which is interesting. If only when Dak and CeeDee and everyone was healthy, they could have put it all together. It could have been talking about a different record. It's just unfortunate. It feels like, there's that small chance, but it's a little too late. But I've got the Buccaneers, man. I wanted to pick the boys for you, but I couldn't get there.
I didn't even pick them. It's okay.
All right, man. So I appreciate you doing pick'ems. Now I got another top 5 list for you, since you like to do your power rankings on your show. So now we've got the Christmas season upon us, and you and I have been texting back and forth about gift ideas and all that stuff. So it made me wonder, though, do you have a top 5 Christmas movie list? And if you do, what's your top 5?
So this is kind of hard to put together. I don't know if I could rank them. I do know my good 5. Polar Express, classic. Grew up on that. Maybe got overplayed when I worked at a summer camp for a few years, but that's got to be on there. Okay. I was between Frosty and Grinch. But I don't love the Grinch movie. I love the special, like the cartoon. 30-minute special. So if I'm doing a movie, I gotta slide Grinch out for Frosty.
Okay.
very, very heartwarming. Santa Claus with Tim Allen.
Okay, that's a good
on
one.
there. One that doesn't get said a lot. It's a really sad movie, actually. Is Christmas Shoes.
Oh, yeah.
You've seen it.
Yeah. Very much have seen it. That is a very sad movie. Not your typical Christmas movie.
Not your typical Christmas movie. I just have memories of watching it with my mom every year. And for some reason, she had it on TV. And I guess at that age, anything on the TV was good with me. And it just became a tradition where we'd sit down and watch Christmas Shoes together. But my favorite, I know, is Elf.
Ah, Buddy the Elf. Yeah, that's a good one.
It's my favorite thing that Will Ferrell's in. There's some stuff that Will Ferrell's in that I'm just like, but Elf, hands down, he was the perfect guy for that role, and he's done phenomenal with it.
So, and what's funny, when it came out, you're almost waiting for the shoe to drop on some kind of like really adult-driven joke, and it's such a cute, heartwarming, family-friendly movie all the way through, even though you're waiting for that Nomer of the Will Ferrell movies to kind of come out, and it doesn't. And that is a very, very, very good movie. It did not make my top 5, but it is like one of the movies I love to watch. And in fact, I own it. So
how's it not in your top 5? What's yours?
Okay. So mine is, and a lot of these are nostalgic, kind of very similar to yours. Like you just have core memories of them. And that's why, because I'm not saying that these are the greatest Christmas movies ever created. They represent for you, like when you're thinking of Christmas, these are your top 5 movies for you, right? So one of them would be Jingle All the Way with Arnold Schwarzenegger. I remember when it came out as a kid, I watched that thing repeatedly and I laughed every time because obviously the whole like action figure thing and him trying to get it off a radio show. If you haven't seen it, it's almost 30 years old, so spoiler alert. But now that I'm older and a parent, I can relate to that movie so much more about like the stress of trying to get that gift that your kid always wants. So that has a special place because I've watched it a bunch of times and I love it. I think it's very humorous for the time that we're in. Home Alone is another top of mine. So it's an older movie, and I'm certain that you've seen Home Alone. I would hope. Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah. That's one that that's one that my wife and I love to watch. And also, I'm not going to put it in my top 5, but Home Alone 2 is actually really funny follow-up movie as well. But Home Alone would be on there. And then I am a Grinch fan. I do like the live action Grinch with Jim Carrey. And it's because Christmas morning, I think I was 10 or 11 when it came out, and we went to go see it on Christmas Day. And I loved it. I thought it was one of the funnier movies I've watched. And I always loved watching it when it comes on TV. It's one of those movies that when I think of it, I think of my mom and my sister when we would watch it. So that one's got a soft spot in my heart. And I do remember the cartoon, which is why watching the live action with Jim Carrey it meant so much to me because I love Jim Carrey and his comedy movies and stuff. So him being in the Grinch was just that much more fun for me. And then Christmas Vacation with Chevy Chase. I don't know if you've watched it or not, but that is a classic. It's almost a must that it needs to be watched in households because of how funny it is. And then this one is just because it plays 24/7 on TBS or TNT every single year. And we have this tradition in my family where they make tamales, and we do it on Christmas Eve, and then we have them on Christmas morning. But every day, all day on Christmas Eve and Christmas plays A Christmas Story. You'll shoot your eye out. That movie is ingrained in my childhood, and I love watching it every year, even though I know exactly what's going to happen. I know almost every line of dialogue because it's been playing for almost 30 years on television free for those. And it's one of those movies that resonates with me as when I was younger. So that'd be my top 5.
So what's funny is my mom, she doesn't really ask for Christmas gifts. I still try to get her something, but a couple years ago, she asked for a BB gun. Like the Red Ryder BB gun. And I worked at a camp, so I knew exactly what to buy. And I went to Dunham's and spent a lot of money. And yeah, I was able to let her unwrap a Red Ryder BB gun.
That is so fun. That is so fun. I just love that whole story behind it and the mall, the Santa, and it's such a great thing. Do you guys do any traditions, you and your family, during the Christmas or the holidays? Is there something that you guys have done as tradition that you look forward to?
Yeah, man. Christmas Eve, we're making cookies for Santa. They gotta be chocolate chip. We're
Okay.
tracking him on the computer, making sure we get to bed on time. We wake up in the morning and we all stayed in our rooms as kids, and we'd get the go ahead from Dad once he saw everybody was awake. We'd all enter the room at the same time. We'd sit around the tree, open up presents, see what Santa brought us, and then for New Year's we're drinking eggnog, toasting in the new year. So it's a good time, man. I'm excited to finally relax and just enjoy Christmas.
Right on. Do you have a Christmas that kind of stands out from years past, of like a gift that you got that you always wanted, or a gift that gave you that you had a lot of sentiment around? Is there one that stands out for you?
So I have two answers to that question. The one memory that stands out from me is, I want to say it was 2006, 2007, somewhere near there.
Okay.
Actually, it was 2006 because it was SmackDown versus Raw 2007.
Okay.
My parents were like, hey, wait, see you in the morning. I'm like, I'm going to wake up at midnight. Well, lo and behold, before I ever had an alarm clock, I woke up at 12:06.
Oh, wow.
And we got to see what Sam brought us. And I stayed up all night from 12 o'clock to 5, 6 a.m. playing that new wrestling video game.
Oh, yeah.
And I just remember that faint memory. And every time Christmas comes around, I'm like, hey, I'll see you at 12:06 again this year. And they never take me up on it. But one of the coolest gifts, and I've had some really good ones. I've been very blessed and fortunate to where my parents were like, hey, that's not in our budget. And then lo and behold, Santa brings us a gift. But there was a particular moment where I unwrapped a present, and it was a double fold, right? And I saw all these newspapers, and it was a heavy box because of all the newspapers. And in that was a signed Des Bryant card.
Oh, wow.
So first of all, I'm a huge Cowboys fan.
I didn't know.
Huge Cowboys fan. Huge Des Bryant fan. He was one of my favorite players on the team when he was playing. But it was double fold because not only was it a signed card of my favorite player at the time, but the newspapers were all these local newspapers, and they were sports sections. And it was almost hey, Michael, we know you want to be in sports journalism, broadcasting in some degree. Here's our way of saying we support you, we love you, and we want you to succeed.
Oh, wow. Wow, what a special gift. Who got that for you?
My parents.
Oh, man.
And they do something to where it's like, if it's the last gift, they'll put a star on it, and they're like, this is probably the one they'll like the best. That had the star on it.
Oh, wow. Yeah, not only did it have the star on it, but it was the most probably impactful that you had, because I would garner to assume that probably helped you find courage to do sports broadcasting. So probably had a huge impact moving forward on what you wanted to do.
Yeah, especially knowing you had your parents' support.
Oh, yeah.
And now, it's gotten to the point where we're doing Boom. I'm doing a show with my dad. My mom doesn't like sports, and she'll watch, and she doesn't really enjoy wrestling, but she's watched the Nightcap or watched my podcast, and now she's watching wrestling with us as a family.
Oh, wow.
It's really cool to have that support from your family.
Yeah, dude, that's awesome, because not a lot of people probably can say that. And I mean, I don't think my dad listens very much, and not that he needs to, it's totally fine. But my wife, though, has been gracious enough to be a supporter. She may not listen, but she'll always be my biggest fan. So to have some folks in your corner is always making you want to do it that much more. So totally agree. But speaking of Boom, though, I have a couple of questions for you regarding Boom before I let you go. And again, thank you so much for giving me your time. We're not running too far behind, but I know that I got to get you out of here pretty soon. But looking back on 2024, what's the moment that you're most proud of since you started Boom?
When it comes to the YouTube channel, I'm assuming.
I would say in the whole process, like even behind the scenes of it, that not a lot of people get to see, because and I'll dive in a little bit more of what I'm talking about, because when you and I talk offline the first time, again, I'm more interested in behind the scenes stuff. Like, it's easy to put an edited video up there, but people don't see like what goes on behind it, relationships, conversations, this, that, and the other that goes into it. And maybe those are when you've had your proudest moments of it, and it's not captured on camera. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So in the year that and not even a year, like in the 5 months that you've started Boom, is there a moment that you can recall that makes you the most proud of it? And if so, what is it?
So I've had conversations with about 2 to 3 people, and they've been off air, and some of my content creators, and we'll talk after, out of pocket goes off air, or, we'll call each other and they'll just say, thank you. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like, people say thank you all the time, and they go into more detail about like how podcasting and how this platform has given them like a passion, or given them like a release from like life and everything and stuff they'd never imagined doing. And they'll use the term, and I hate it, because they're like, you saved my life. I'm like, I did nothing. I did not do that. But it just really, it hammers home, like I never wanted it to be just me or just my content. What's the fun in that?
Right.
Like I wanted it to be a place where, people could talk about their passions. And it's really cool, because those conversations where they've said thank you have turned into us like getting more real and more deep. And to where, like, I mean, I'll be honest, like, if you guys are watching, 70 some minutes into the show, you probably deserve to hear this. Like, I've cried like in conversations with people, because they'll say something and they'll encourage me when, other stuff in my life may not be going the way I want it to. And there's been several times to where I'm just like, wow, without this community that I needed at that point in time, like, where would my encouragement have come from? So that's one of the cool things. That is one of the cool things. Another one was talking about my health issues last year, a year after the fact, to where I can say I'm healed and I'm good, and I'm fully healthy. Like, I couldn't have imagined that a year ago. Like, a year ago from this date, like, I just, been prayed over, and I was still like laying around. It was tough. But now that I can like have that episode and look back and be able to be vulnerable, and share my story for encouragement or hope to somebody else, like that, that's awesome.
So since you've started content creating and podcasting, and as you mentioned, you had to get vulnerable and introspective in a lot of things. Is there something that you learned about yourself that you didn't realize before, since you've formed, created, and been now this podcaster and all that stuff?
I would say I'm capable. Like, there was a lot of self-confidence issues or self-doubt when it comes to this, because everybody will tell you like, oh, like, you can do it, no big deal. But when you're like, oh my gosh, like, this is a huge undertaking.
Yeah.
It's tough, and it like messes with your mindset, your mentality. But just gaining the confidence, like, hey, I can produce 20 some videos a week. I can do all these edits. I can make these graphics. I can make these lower thirds. I can make this intro package. I can do something to help somebody else's show, or I can do something to help entertain whoever's watching. It's been a real confidence boost that I would have been like, if you told me I could do this 5 years ago, I'd be like, you're crazy. I need to do that somewhere else. But no, it's all been here.
That's cool, man. All right. So last question, and we're going to wrap. or we're to go home, as the wrestlers would say. Looking ahead to 2025, do you have some goals or things that you're putting on, let's say, the vision board that you've pinned for either yourself or Boom? And if so, like, what's that looking like for 2025?
I don't want to give too much away. You'll have to see most of this in the pipeline, but one of the things I would love to do is obviously expand the audience. We're closing in on 500 subscribers. I want that in the 4 digits. That's something that's on the line. Being on more platforms, maybe, a merch or two down the line is coming up, and we'll do some more social media engagement as well. But it's a group effort. It's a team effort. I'm learning that as we go along. There's a great team for Boom. We have really good content creators. It's going to be nice. But honestly, if we're a year from now, obviously I want to grow. I have a vision of growing and making this more a part of people's like daily lives. But in a year, if you tell me we're still creating content that people are enjoying and consuming, and the content creators are getting to their passions, then I'll be like, okay, whether we hit those goals or not, I'm really happy about that.
Right on, man. What a perfect send off. So, Michael, man, it's always a blast, and I'm always honored that you're giving me your time. People don't realize this, but in content creating, and especially like sports, sometimes time zones play a factor in that, and it's tough to coordinate these things. So the fact that you did that for me, man, I really appreciate it.
Dude, you've done so much for me. You've coordinated to be on Out of Pocket, but more than that, you've been texting me, giving me advice on life, and just being a good friend. So if you guys aren't Drew and you don't have him as a best friend, you should be ashamed of yourselves. No, man, I appreciate you. So anytime we can make this work, I'd be happy to.
Right on, man, for sure. Go ahead and plug your stuff, Michael, and then we'll close the show, and I'll let you get on about your evening because I know you got a lot to do tomorrow. So where can everyone find you in Boom Broadcasting?
Yeah, you can find us on YouTube right now. Boom Broadcasting. It's right under my name on the screen. And if you haven't been watching the screen at our lovely faces and that ugly San Fran Giants hat, where are you doing? Hey. So that's where you can find us. We are on Facebook. We're on Instagram, Twitter, or X, whatever you want to call it. Again, we'll expand to more platforms here soon. We're also on TikTok as well. So yeah, go follow us. Say hey. We have pre-recorded shows. We have live shows, including Out of Pocket. Out of Pocket does NFL picks on Friday. So if you say, hey, I found you through Drew Code Sports Talk, comment while we're live. I'll throw it up on the screen, give you a shout out just to say thank you guys for watching and, supporting these guys right here. Cause these are good guys to be supported.
I'm honored, Michael. Thank you. Everyone, please go and check out Michael and Boom Broadcasting. They have a plethora of shows, and you will find one, I guarantee it. All you have to do is just look. There's a lot of great ones. I've watched quite a bit of them now that we've kind of gotten this friendship going. So I can attest that there's a lot of content. Whatever you're looking for, you will find it on Boom Broadcasting. So, Michael, always a pleasure. For everyone watching, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. Go find us wherever you get your podcast. Listen to us on audio, and then follow us on social media. All that's linked down below. And I will put Michael's stuff down below if anyone wants to follow him and Boom Broadcasting. God, I almost went the whole show without messing up, Michael. But anyways, appreciate you guys. Have a good evening. Be kind to one another. And we will see you guys on the next episode.